Today, Christianity is the largest religion on earth, shaping cultures and calendars worldwide. But to find its origin, we have to rewind past the cathedrals and empires, all the way back over 2,000 years, to a single man born somewhere between 4 and 7 BC. According to the historical texts, this movement started with a prophecy. An entity named Gabriel appeared to a young, unmarried woman named Mary, delivering a message that she had been chosen to give birth to a divine child destined for greatness. But Mary and her husband Joseph were subjects of the Roman Empire. When Emperor Augustus ordered a massive census, the couple was forced to make a difficult journey to the city of Bethlehem. Bethlehem was completely overrun with people traveling for the census. With no rooms left, Mary gave birth in a common stable. This birth among livestock and dirt is what billions of people now commemorate globally every December 25th. It presents one of history's most fascinating paradoxes. A child born into the lowest, poorest tier of Judean society would somehow grow up to challenge the ultimate authority of the greatest empire on earth. Jesus grew up with Mary and Joseph in the small, quiet town of Nazareth. Living as a carpenter's son, his early years were spent far from the political centers of power. As he began to teach, his rising influence created a dual threat. To the Roman authorities, he represented a potential disruption to regional stability. To the established religious elites, he was a direct threat to their authority and control over the public. Jesus openly criticized the religious leaders of his time, calling them hypocrites. He argued that they used strict rituals and religious laws to keep the population mentally enslaved, prioritizing rules over actual compassion. His influence grew because he backed his radical teachings with actions that left witnesses without a logical explanation. Fulfilling ancient religious prophecies might convince a few scholars, but it doesn't mobilize a massive grassroots movement. To draw out thousands of everyday people, undeniable miracles were required. The Book of John records his very first public display at a wedding in Cana. When the celebration ran out of drinks, Jesus reportedly turned 150 gallons of water into high-quality wine at his mother's request. But the Gospel of Luke details an entirely different scale of power. Arriving at the gates of a city called Nain, Jesus intercepted a funeral procession for a widow's only son. Seeing the mother's grief, he stepped forward, touched the coffin, and told the young man to get up. The boy immediately sat up and began to speak. The psychological effect on the crowd was absolute. In their eyes, only a true God possessed the power to reverse death itself. These localized displays of power forged an unbreakable, fanatical bond with the common people. Almost overnight, Jesus was transformed from a wandering rabbi into a living deity for his followers. The scale of this movement quickly became terrifying to the authorities. Thousands of people began abandoning their daily routines, following Jesus deep into desolate wilderness areas just to hear him speak. Feeding everyone would cost 8 months of wages, economically impossible. Yet, according to Mark, Jesus took the only food they had, 5 pieces of bread and 2 fish. By the end, those meager rations multiplied to feed all 5,000 followers. A Roman official wouldn't see a miracle, they would see a logistics problem. A man who can independently sustain 5,000 followers in the wilderness has the infrastructure to support a rebellion. Simultaneously, the religious leaders in Jerusalem saw a rogue blasphemer. Jesus was bypassing their temples and rituals, directly threatening their monopoly on faith and spiritual authority. This level of mass influence was effectively his death sentence. The combined forces of the regional status quo realized they had to eliminate the leader before this grassroots movement sparked a full-scale rebellion. Jesus was soon arrested and brought to trial in Jerusalem. The official charges laid against him were entirely political, disturbing the peace and attempting to seize power. His fate rested with the Roman authority of the region, the 5th governor of Judea, Pontius Pilate. During the trial, no actual crimes were definitively proven. However, facing immense political pressure from local elites and a growing mob, Pilate sentenced Jesus to death. The method of execution was crucifixion. Jesus was nailed to a wooden cross and left to hang in agony for 6 hours. Above his head, the Romans nailed a mocking sign, written in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek, labeling him the King of the Jews. The cross was designed for public humiliation. It served as a visible warning that Rome's authority was absolute, intended to terrify anyone else who might consider testing the empire. After his death, followers placed his body inside a rock cave tomb. But 3 days later, those who went to mourn made a shocking discovery. The heavy stone was moved, and the tomb was entirely empty. According to the texts, this was the resurrection. Jesus appeared alive to Mary Magdalene and his core disciples, solidifying their faith before his reported ascension 40 days later. His surviving followers refused to let the movement die. They spread his teachings outward across the globe, eventually constructing massive global institutions and formalizing what is now the world's most widely practiced religion. But as his influence grew, the narrative changed. History shows his name was later invoked for crusades and the suppression of scientific inquiry. And today, some use the promise of miracles to build businesses around faith. Looking back at the real history of Jesus challenges us today. Regardless of personal faith, his story leaves us with a clear directive: to actively reject exploitation, to defeat our own inner evils, and to relentlessly help the most vulnerable people in our communities.